In the aftermath of World War II, a group of U.S. engineers stood on the brink of discovery as they examined a surrendered German U-boat. This silent vessel, a testament to advanced military technology, held secrets that would challenge their understanding of underwater warfare. Among its components were sophisticated acoustic systems designed for stealth and evasion, features that raised questions about the future of naval strategy. While some characters in this story may be fictionalized, the events are rooted in a real historical context that reshaped maritime tactics. Join us as we delve into the world of post-war innovation and the secrets that lay beneath the surface. Subscribe to our channel for access to well-researched facts and rare perspectives on pivotal historical moments. Our clear explanations and regular uploads will equip you with a deeper understanding of how the past influences the present. Don't miss out. Be part of a community that values knowledge and exploration of our shared history. The surrender of U-505 in June 1944 marked a pivotal moment in the Allied naval strategy during World War II, catalyzing a deeper understanding of German maritime technology. As Allied forces sought to decipher the complexities of U-boat operations, a contingent of U.S. engineers was assembled, tasked with meticulously studying the captured submarine. The engineers approached this challenge with a sense of urgency, aware that any technological advantage gleaned could impact the Atlantic theater's balance. The secrecy surrounding U-boat designs had long shrouded them in mystery, and the task at hand was both a privilege and a burden, laden with the weight of thousands of lives lost in the ongoing battle against the German forces. Upon initial inspection, the U-505 revealed the stark contrast between its Spartan interior and the sophisticated engineering that lay within. Each compartment was a testament to German ingenuity, the walls encased systems that had been honed in the crucible of warfare. The engineers' tools clinked softly against each other as they navigated the cramped passages, their reverence for the submarine's design palpable. Among the myriad instruments, the acoustic system stood out, showcasing a level of sophistication that was both impressive and unsettling. These devices were designed to detect enemy vessels through sound, employing technology that was years ahead of its time. It was as if the U-boat held within its steel hull not merely weapons, but a narrative of survival and ingenuity, cloaked in the guise of lethal efficiency. As the engineers delved deeper, they uncovered the intricacies of the hydrophone arrays and sonar installations, which allowed the U-boat crews to listen to the ocean's whispers, discerning the distant thrum of propellers from miles away. This revelation evoked a quiet admiration mixed with trepidation. They recognized that such advancements could shift the tide of the war. Conversations among the engineers turned somber as they compared the German technology to their own, which, while effective, would require rapid innovation to keep pace with the enemy's evolving tactics. The capture of U-505 served not only as a strategic victory, but also as a stark reminder of the relentless nature of technological arms races in warfare. The implications of the acoustic systems were staggering. They enabled the U-boats to stalk Allied convoys with an almost predatory precision, a truth that weighed heavily on the engineer's conscience. The long hours spent analyzing the mechanisms led to a prevailing sense of vulnerability. They understood that the tools of war could not be viewed merely as instruments of destruction. Instead, they were manifestations of a relentless pursuit of dominance, where each advancement came at a steep human cost. This realization was a bittersweet irony, for while they sought to dismantle the U-boat's capabilities, they also found themselves grappling with the shadows of their own ethical boundaries. As the engineers pressed on, they stumbled upon an unsettling realization. The acoustic systems were not merely defensive tools, but could also be employed to mislead and misdirect. The technology integrated mechanisms that could create false sonar signatures, masking their true intentions and movements. This duality of purpose highlighted the moral ambiguity of warfare, where advancements designed for protection could just as easily serve to deceive. It prompted a silent introspection among the engineers. They were not merely observers, but participants in a broader narrative about the nature of power, technology, and its consequences. The culmination of their findings was a technical report that they presented to their military superiors. While filled with clinical analysis and engineering diagrams, the report bore an undercurrent of concern. The engineers understood that knowledge could be both an asset and a weapon, and they were acutely aware that their insights could lead to countermeasures that might one day be used against the very people they had come to empathize with through their work. It was a realization that haunted them in quiet moments, particularly as they regarded the broader implications of their findings against the backdrop of human suffering wrought by the war. In the weeks that followed, the engineers found themselves in discussions that veered into philosophical territory. They debated the nature of warfare in the age of technology, pondering if advancements designed for the greater good could inadvertently lead to a cycle of destruction. Some argued that understanding and surpassing the enemy's capabilities was essential. Others cautioned against allowing technological supremacy to cloud moral judgment. As the war pushed on, these discussions became a sanctuary for their anxieties, a place where the weight of their responsibilities could be shared and examined through the lens of humanity. Despite their best efforts, however, the silence that followed their discoveries remained deafening. The engineers recognized that they were caught in a relentless spiral, driven by the need for information and the desire for peace, yet burdened by the reality that each step toward understanding could lead to more suffering. The captured U-boat, stripped of its military significance, became a haunting reminder of the price of knowledge. As they walked away from the U-505, a subtle symbolism lingered in the air. The immense potential of human ingenuity was reflected in the iron hull, yet so too was the darkness that accompanied every innovation born from conflict. Ultimately, the engineers realized that their task was not only to analyze the U-boat's technology, but also to come to terms with the moral complexities that emerged alongside it. In their silence, they grappled with the paradox of their own existence as agents of progress amid the tumult of war, each ponderous moment amplifying the gravity of their role in history. As they returned to their labs, the echoes of the U-505 reverberated in their thoughts, a symbolic testament to the duality of human endeavor, capable of both creation and destruction, progress and peril. The U-boat, sleek and menacing, bobbed gently in its mooring at the U.S. Navy's facility in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. After its capture in the summer of 1945, the vessel had become a focal point of intrigue, not just for the Allied forces, but also for the burgeoning field of underwater acoustics. Engineers and naval officers gathered around the vessel, their anticipation palpable. They were eager to unravel the mysteries of this technological marvel, keen to understand the very systems that had allowed German troops to wreak havoc on Allied shipping for years. The U-boat's hull, riddled with the scars of battle and wear, seemed to hold secrets that were both tantalizing and daunting. As the engineers set to work, they encountered the first layer of the U-boat's acoustic systems, the hydrophone arrays designed to detect enemy vessels. These devices were sophisticated, a blend of engineering and innovation that allowed the German forces to listen in on distant sounds under the waves. Each component was meticulously manufactured, reflecting a level of precision that both impressed and unnerved the U.S. team. The engineers found themselves admiring the craftsmanship, recognizing the ingenuity that had allowed the Germans to maintain a strategic advantage across the Atlantic. The acoustic technology did not simply serve a military purpose. It had a chilling ability to encapsulate the very essence of warfare. In these systems lay a reminder of the consequences of technological advancement, how innovation could be wielded as a weapon, altering the nature of conflict. The engineers pondered the moral implications of their findings. Every insight gained could lead to further enhancements in their own acoustic warfare capabilities. The line between innovation and destruction became blurred, a reflection of the duality that defines human ingenuity. Among the engineers was Captain James Hall, a seasoned veteran who had seen the grim realities of war and understood the weight of responsibility that came with these discoveries. As he examined the hydrophone systems, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were uncovering not just technology, but a mindset. Each wire and circuit board seemed to echo the thoughts of its creators, a haunting reminder of the lengths to which the German forces had gone to protect their maritime ambitions. Hall's introspection led him to consider the broader implications of warfare. He questioned whether victory would ever justify the means employed to achieve it. In the days that followed, the team began to delve deeper into the U-boat's secret compartment, the so-called silent listening chamber. This room, lined with sound-dampening materials, was designed to allow crew members to hear their surroundings with unparalleled clarity, transforming the chaotic environment of a submarine into a realm of eerie stillness. The engineers found themselves entranced by the idea of silence as a tactical advantage, understanding that the absence of sound could be as powerful as a well-placed torpedo. The chamber's design also revealed a profound insight into the nature of fear and survival. It was a sanctuary of sorts, where crew members could momentarily escape the omnipresent threats lurking outside. This stark contrast between the tranquility of the chamber and the chaos of the ocean above it served as a metaphor for the war itself. Often, the most harrowing battles were fought not with weapons, but within the confines of the human psyche. The engineers became acutely aware that they were not merely analyzing a vessel. They were piecing together the fragments of human experience and emotion that had driven countless men to perilous depths. As their analysis progressed, whispers of the U-boat's production methods began to surface. The engineers learned that every component had been developed under the relentless pressure of wartime exigencies. The German forces had poured resources into creating these acoustic systems, viewing them as essential to their naval strategy. A sense of melancholy washed over the team as they realized that the genius behind such inventions had led to suffering and devastation on an unprecedented scale. The knowledge weighed heavily on Captain Hall, who reflected on the irony. The same drive for innovation that had fueled human advancement was also responsible for immense pain. On an emotional level, the U-boat represented a paradox, its sleek exterior concealing the dark realities of its operational history. For the engineers, this dichotomy sparked a moment of introspection about their own roles in the ongoing war. Each development, intended to safeguard their nation, could also serve to perpetuate the cycle of conflict. They were at a pivotal crossroads, where the remnants of their adversaries' tactics could shape the future of naval warfare. It was a bittersweet realization, one that pressed upon them the weight of their choices. The final days of analysis were marked by a palpable tension as the team oscillated between admiration for the technological achievements and disquiet over the moral ramifications. They were part of a legacy that would continue to evolve, and with every acoustic breakthrough they made, they felt the shadows of the past linger. As the U-boat prepared to leave Portsmouth, destined for further study, the engineers stood in quiet reflection, contemplating the paths of innovation and destruction they had tread. In that moment of silence, they understood that the legacy of the U-boat was far from over. It was an echo that would continue to resonate through the corridors of history, shaping the future even as it haunted the present. As the engineers approached the U-boat, a palpable tension filled the air, thick with the weight of curiosity and apprehension. The vessel, formerly identified as U-505, had been captured on June 4, 1944, off the coast of Africa. Its surrender was a major triumph, representing not only a tangible asset gained by the Allies, but also a psychological victory over the German forces. The haunting shadows of war hung around the sleek submarine, a relic draped in the remnants of its former ferocity, now immobilized and vulnerable. Engineers, naval officers, and intelligence analysts gathered, their hearts racing with the possibilities that lay within its hull, a treasure trove of secrets that could shift the balance of naval warfare. Upon entering the U-boat, the engineers were met with an eerie silence, the echoes of its once thrumming engines replaced by a suffocating stillness. They began their examination methodically, scrutinizing every compartment, every rivet, and every mechanism that had once propelled this vessel through the depths of the ocean. The interior, designed for stealth, was cramped and dark, with narrow passageways that seemed to whisper stories of the crew who once manned it. The engineers were drawn deeper into the belly of the beast, their minds racing with possibilities. Among the many innovative designs they encountered, one feature stood out, an intricate array of acoustic systems. These devices, intended for submarine warfare, were leagues ahead of the technology employed by the Allies at that time. The engineers marveled at the passive sonar technology capable of detecting enemy ships through the subtle changes in water pressure and sound. This system was both revolutionary and unsettling, as it represented a significant shift in naval tactics, one that could render traditional naval vessels vulnerable to unseen predators lurking beneath the surface. The implications of this technology resonated deeply within the engineers, stirring a sense of urgency that fueled their discussions long after they left the submarine. They were not merely analyzing equipment, they were grappling with the very fabric of warfare's evolution. As the investigation progressed, it became increasingly clear that these acoustic systems were part of a broader strategy employed by German forces. The U-boat had not only been a tool of war, but a manifestation of a new approach to combat, one that relied on stealth and cunning rather than sheer firepower. Each device they examined was a testament to human ingenuity, repurposed for destruction, but also emblematic of the ingenuity that characterized the conflict as a whole. The engineers began to reflect on the consequences of such advancements, wondering how they would fare in the face of a growing tide of technological warfare that stretched both sides to their limits. When the engineers regrouped after their initial explorations, their conversations grew heavier. They exchanged insights on the implications of what they had witnessed, the enormity of the situation weighing upon them. The submerged design of the U-boat had not only offered it a strategic advantage beneath the waves, but it also mirrored the broader struggle in which the Allies found themselves, an undercurrent of darkness and uncertainty shrouding the fate of nations. As they voiced their concerns, anxiety rippled through the group, an acknowledgement of the cat-and-mouse game being played beneath the surface of the ocean. The acoustic technology was no ordinary invention. It was a harbinger of future conflicts and the shifting nature of warfare. Compounding their unease was the realization that the very systems that had once posed a significant threat to Allied forces were now effectively in their hands. It was a moment of paradox, where victory and trepidation intertwined. The engineers spoke of the potential applications of the technology, but quickly steered the conversation toward morally ambiguous terrain. What should be done with this newfound knowledge? In their minds, the echoes of the past reverberated. The destruction and loss borne by both sides throughout the war weighed heavily on them. They understood that each technological advance in warfare carried with it the potential for destruction on an unprecedented scale. The tension reached a crescendo when one engineer, a naval officer with a military background, voiced a sentiment that had been brewing in the minds of many. "We must ensure that we do not become what we fight against," he cautioned, his voice steady, yet tinged with an undercurrent of urgency. The room fell silent, the implications of his words lingering in the air like a storm cloud, threatening to unleash its fury. The choice before them was stark: to exploit the technology for greater destruction, perpetuating the cycle of violence, or to harness it for a more noble purpose, defending freedom and promoting peace. As the engineers departed from the U-505 that day, the weight of their discoveries settled upon them like a shroud. They could not shake the feeling that the submarine had imparted a crucial lesson, one that transcended the immediate concerns of warfare. The U-boat represented not just the advancement of technology, but a profound reflection of humanity's capacity for both creation and destruction. With each wave that crashed against the hull of the vessel, they felt the echoes of a fate being etched into the annals of history, a reminder of the fragility of peace in a world teetering on the brink of further conflict. In the weeks that followed, the engineers worked tirelessly to decode the full extent of the acoustic system's capabilities. Each analysis was a step closer to understanding the German forces' strategies and intentions. Yet as they toiled in the name of progress, they wrestled with the moral implications of their findings. The duality of their existence as both creators and destroyers weighed heavily on their conscience, a reflection of the broader struggle that defined the war itself. The U-boat, once an instrument of terror, had become a catalyst for introspection, prompting them to question the very nature of their mission in a world where the line between right and wrong was increasingly blurred. As the U-boat, its hull marked with the scars of war, settled in the dock at the U.S. Navy Yard in Brooklyn, a hush descended over the crowd that had gathered to witness this rare spectacle. The submersible designated U-505 had been captured in June 1944, a tangible artifact of the conflict that had raged across the oceans. For the engineers and analysts tasked with examining the vessel, it was more than just metal and machinery. It was a gateway to understanding the technological advancements of the German forces. They approached the task with a mixture of curiosity and trepidation, fully aware that what lay before them could shift the tide of naval warfare. In the days following its arrival, teams of engineers, acousticians, and intelligence officers gathered around the U-boat, drawn into an atmosphere of profound urgency. The war was still unfolding, and the Allies needed every advantage they could muster. As they scrutinized the structure, they were particularly focused on the acoustic systems that German forces had developed. Sophisticated technology designed to detect enemy ships and submarines at unprecedented distances. The ultimate goal was to unravel these innovations, and the engineers were acutely aware that understanding this technology could lead to countermeasures that would save countless lives. Among the engineers was Lieutenant Commander Edward L. Buzz Windsor, a seasoned submariner with a distinguished record. As he peered into the heart of the U-boat, the weight of responsibility pressed upon him. He'd been present at the battles of the Atlantic, where the stakes were measured in lives lost and ships sunk. The prospect of analyzing the acoustic systems filled him with a mix of excitement and dread. What if they discovered a flaw that could be exploited? Or conversely, what if they found something so advanced that it would render existing tactics obsolete? The first days were filled with a palpable tension. Each revelation from the U-505 felt like peeling away layers of a complex puzzle. The engineers meticulously examined the hydrophones, the devices that served as the U-boat's ears beneath the waves. Their sensitivity was astounding, allowing for the detection of sounds that were imperceptible to the average sailor. It became evident that the Germans had invested heavily in research and development, seeking to maintain a competitive edge in the undersea warfare that had claimed so many lives on both sides. As the engineers conducted their tests, a strange quiet began to envelop their discussions. They were genuinely impressed by the ingenuity of the systems, but with each breakthrough came an unsettling realization of the enemy's potential. The advanced sound detection technology seemed to defy the limits of conventional understanding, revealing the extent of German innovation. The group began to reflect on the implications of their findings, recognizing that they were not merely technicians engaged in a routine analysis, but rather participants in a much larger narrative of conflict and survival. In a moment of stark clarity, the group realized that their mission was no longer just about technology. It had evolved into a reflection on humanity itself. The engineers found themselves grappling with the moral complexities of war, especially as they weighed the potential of this newfound knowledge against the lives it could affect. These machines had been built not just to kill, but to protect a nation's interests, making the engineers acutely aware of the duality of their work. They were tasked with dismantling an enemy's capabilities, while simultaneously recognizing the brilliance that went into creating such mechanisms. As the analysis continued, the discussion shifted towards the broader implications of their findings. Could the Allies harness similar technologies for their submarines? And if so, what would that mean for the future of naval warfare? The engineers debated the principles of acoustic warfare, contemplating how sound itself had become a weapon in the hands of their enemies. The discussions often spiraled into contemplative silence, with each engineer lost in thoughts of the balance between innovation and destruction. Ultimately, the engineers reached a consensus that would guide their efforts moving forward. While they would seek to replicate and counter the German acoustic systems, they would do so with a cautious respect for the ingenuity that lay behind them. The decision felt symbolic, a reminder that the technologies born from conflict were often double-edged swords. In a world where sound could lead to ambush and victory, the engineers understood that their role was not merely to engineer machines, but to forge paths toward a more humane future amidst the echoes of war. The analysis of U-505 would continue for weeks, each day deepening the engineers' understanding of the technological landscape of their enemies. With each breakthrough, they felt the weight of their responsibility increase. As they labored in the bowels of the U-boat, surrounded by the ghosts of its past, the engineers became acutely aware of their role in shaping the future. They were not just engineers, they were stewards of a legacy that demanded both reflection and action in a time when the world hung on the precipice of change. As the U-boat lay unceremoniously at the dock in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, it was a testament to the war's finality, a hulking shadow of an era that had unleashed destruction across continents. Surrounded by the cacophony of a bustling naval yard, the vessel seemed to whisper its secrets into the salty air, secrets that had once given the German forces a formidable edge beneath the waves. Engineers and naval officers peered beyond the surface of the unremarkable shell, drawn not only by the technology housed within, but by the ghosts of those who had once crewed these metal leviathans. Among the most intriguing features of the captured U-boat was its acoustic system, the result of years of clandestine research and development. As the engineers huddled around diagrams and took measurements, they marveled at the ingenuity of its design. The hydrophones, delicate, sensitive instruments used for listening to enemy vessels, were indicative of a paradigm shift in naval warfare. Captured documents hinted at an understanding of sound propagation in water that was far advanced for the time, and the German forces had leveraged this technology to deadly effect, turning the Atlantic into a theater of sound and silence where the hunter often became the hunted. The engineers, however, recognized that these developments were not merely technical achievements. They were emblematic of a broader strategic vision, a frantic race against time and resources that had driven the German war machine to innovate under pressure. Research labs scattered across occupied territories had worked tirelessly to develop these systems, their successes shadowed by the realities of a war that was increasingly turning against them. For American engineers, examining the U-boat was not just an exercise in reverse engineering. It was an opportunity to understand the ethos that had spurred such advancements and, critically, how those innovations might inform their own future. Yet, as they delved deeper into the intricacies of the U-boat's acoustic systems, an unexpected silence enveloped the group. Each revelation brought a wave of realization, not just about the technology, but about the consequences of its application. The power to detect enemy movements had transformed naval engagements into a game of cat and mouse, where a single oversight could lead to catastrophic loss. It was a sobering acknowledgement that the ingenuity of their adversaries had wrought havoc on supply lines and troop movements, ushering in an era where submarines could sink ships without ever revealing their own position. During this time, the engineers exchanged wary glances, aware that their own advancements in sonar and underwater communication systems would need to contend with these German innovations. History was not merely a record of victories, it was a continuous dialogue of adaptation and counter-adaptation. The U-boat's secrets were not only a map of where the enemy had been, but a harbinger of where naval warfare was heading, deeper into the realms of technology and psychology, where understanding sound was as crucial as understanding steel. As the sun dipped low on the horizon, painting the deck of the U-boat in hues of gold and shadow, reflections danced in the minds of the engineers. They were no longer simply analyzing a vessel. They were standing at the crossroads of history, where the losses of one side could illuminate the path for the other. The German forces, in their desperation, had unveiled a dimension of warfare that was both thrilling and terrifying, compelling the Americans to rethink their own tactical doctrines. The juxtaposition of ingenuity with ethical implications weighed heavily on them. Each advance was a reminder of what had transpired in the depths of the ocean, where human lives had been disrupted in the blink of an eye. In the silence that followed, thoughts turned toward the men who operated this vessel. The engineers could not ignore the sacrifices made in the pursuit of technological superiority. Inside that U-boat, in moments of tension and fear, decisions had been made that shaped the fate of nations. The sleek lines of the vessel now bore a duality of purpose, as an instrument of war and a memorial to those who had fought within it. For all its power, it was also a symbol of human fallibility, the relentless pursuit of progress, entwined with the spectre of destruction. As the engineers completed their inspection and began to disperse, the weight of their discoveries lingered in the air, heavy with implications. They understood that their own advancements in acoustic technology would not only have practical applications, but would also carry the moral burden of understanding the complexities of warfare. The cold steel of the U-boat was a reminder that while victory could be achieved through innovation, the true cost of war would always echo in the silence that followed, reverberating through history long after the last shots had been fired. In the months that followed, efforts to develop countermeasures against the very technologies they had scrutinized would intensify. The engineers teamed up with military strategists, forging a path that would see the United States harness the lessons learned from the German U-boat into a formidable advantage of its own. Yet, as they raced against time, the memories of the past remained, imprinted on their minds, urging them to remember not only the victories, but the humanity that lay beneath the metal and machinery. In the autumn of 1944, the U-boat under scrutiny was a marvel of German engineering, a reflection of the immense resources and strategic ingenuity poured into the submarine campaign against Allied shipping. The vessel, though now a surrendered fragment of a once formidable fleet, carried within it secrets that could tilt the balance of naval warfare. As the U.S. engineers gathered in the makeshift analysis facility at Portsmouth, New Hampshire, they found themselves confronting not just the physical reality of the submarine, but the psychological ramifications of its capabilities. This was not merely an examination of metal and machinery, but an encounter with a potent symbol of resilience and innovation, born from desperation. The engineers carefully removed panels, revealing components that had remained invisible to the outside world. Tucked away within the confines of the U-boat were acoustic systems that had been designed to detect enemy vessels far in advance, an early iteration of sonar technology that would later shape naval warfare. These systems, intricate and delicate, were a testament to German ingenuity, combining mathematics with engineering in ways that hinted at the desperate creativity born of constrained circumstances. Each wire and sensor was imbued not only with technical brilliance, but with the weight of a military doctrine predicated on stealth and surprise. It was a sobering moment for the engineers, who understood that the limits of human innovation could become both a tool for progress and a weapon of destruction. As they delved deeper into the U-boat's mechanisms, the silence in the room grew palpable, a reflection of their burgeoning realization of what lay before them. The engineers had trained for this moment, educated in the principles of warfare and the strategies that defined the Atlantic theater. Yet the potential of the acoustic systems made them acutely aware that the war was not merely a battle of firepower, but a contest of intellect and adaptation. The haunting quiet replaced their initial curiosity with a shared contemplation of the implications of such technology falling into enemy hands during the war's earlier years. What other advancements had eluded their grasp during critical moments? Among the engineers was William P. Foster, a man whose experience in the Pacific theater had sharpened his instincts about emerging technologies. As he examined the layers of complexity in the U-boat's design, he recalled encounters with Japanese innovations that had similarly surprised American forces. The parallels were undeniable. Both the German and Japanese forces had adapted their technologies in desperation, driven by the urgency of survival. Foster's thoughts wandered to the current state of the war, to the sacrifices made and the risks undertaken to secure the seas. Acoustics had shifted the very nature of engagement. Once, battles were fought at a distance, ships exchanging fire. But now, confrontation could emerge from silence, a predatory instinct lurking beneath the waves. The engineers employed every measurement and calculation possible to quantify the U-boat's capabilities. The vessel's acoustic systems were adept at identifying and tracking enemy vessels, weaving through oceanic currents and echoes with a precision that spoke to the intricacies of sound propagation. The potential for this technology to enhance stealth operations remained a source of anxiety for the American team. They could not shake the idea that their adversaries had been equipped with such tools, potentially setting them back in the ongoing conflict. Each piece of data they collected reinforced the understanding that knowledge was power, and in this case, the secrets of the U-boat illuminated not just its operational strengths, but the tactical errors the Allies had made. As days turned into weeks, the engineers' reports began to paint a stark picture. They detailed advancements in underwater acoustics, revealing a landscape of innovative engineering that could not simply be dismissed as relics of a vanquished foe. The engineers felt a mix of admiration and trepidation as they documented their findings, understanding that what had been learned from the U-boat could yield insights into future naval strategies and technologies. The echoes of those discoveries would ripple through military discourse, informing not only their immediate responses, but long-term planning for the burgeoning Cold War that lay just beyond the horizon. Foster remained particularly disquieted by the implications of the U-boat systems. His mind raced with scenarios that could unfold in the hands of those who might continue to pursue similar technologies. The acoustics could not only offer intelligence advantages, but potentially undermine the very essence of naval power, shifting the balance to a silent predator lurking just below the surface. It became an unsettling metaphor for the post-war landscape, the shadows of past conflicts looming large over future engagements, the spectre of technology wielded with both brilliance and malice. In the quiet of the analysis room, an unspoken resolution formed among the engineers. They knew that their findings would not merely inform military strategy, but would also carry a weighty responsibility, the responsibility to prevent such technologies from becoming instruments of a new tyranny. With each report filed, they recognized the moral implications of their work, understanding that every advancement in warfare carried the potential for unprecedented destruction. The U-boat, once a fearsome predator of the deep, had transformed into a vessel of lessons learned and warnings heeded, its legacy now woven into the fabric of Allied strategic thinking. As they concluded their analysis, a shared silence fell over the room once more. The surrender of the U-boat had not merely signified a tactical victory, it had forced a reckoning with the dual nature of human innovation, capable of both profound achievement and catastrophic consequence. The acoustic systems, once a whisper in the depths of the ocean, had risen to the surface, echoing the complexities of warfare and the responsibilities that came with wielding such profound knowledge. It was this realization that would linger in the minds of the engineers long after the submarine had been dismantled and the war itself had drawn to a close. As the engineers stood around the U-boat, their minds raced with the implications of what they were seeing. The vessel, a remarkable feat of engineering, had been crafted with precision that belied its ominous purpose. The sinkings of merchant ships at the hands of German forces had emerged as a critical challenge for the Allies, necessitating urgent adaptations in naval warfare. However, what lay before them was more than just a captured vessel. It was a window into the technological arms race that had defined the war. The U-boat's hull, designed for stealth and speed, bore the marks of its encounters with the ocean and the enemy, yet there was something else that drew their attention. It was the acoustic systems that truly captured the engineers' fascination and unease. These sophisticated devices, crafted with meticulous detail, were engineered to detect and avoid Allied ships, utilizing sound waves in ways that were not yet fully understood by American scientists. As the engineers examined the U-boat's sonar and torpedo guidance systems, they were struck not only by the technology, but also by the stark realization of how close the German forces were to achieving a dominant edge in underwater warfare. The engineers exchanged glances, their expressions revealing an unspoken acknowledgement of the potential repercussions that this knowledge could unleash. This was not merely a vessel. It was a glimpse into the future of naval conflict. Back at their labs and research facilities, the fallout from these revelations began to take shape. The U-boat's acoustic technology catalyzed a surge of innovation among American engineers, who now understood the stakes involved in undersea warfare. The urgency to develop countermeasures against the German systems was paramount. This led to an unprecedented collaboration between the military and academic institutions, as scientists and engineers teamed up to devise new sonar systems capable of detecting the silent, menacing approach of German submarines. The implications of this collaboration were profound, reflecting a shift in the perception of technological advancement from mere competition to a collective necessity for survival. In the months that followed, the engineers' work became emblematic of a deeper national resolve. The race to enhance naval technology was not merely about defeating the enemy, but also about reclaiming a sense of safety for the nation and its allies. Each advancement was viewed not just as an achievement but as a symbolic act of defiance against the encroaching threat of the German forces. The U-boat stood as a reminder of the adversary's capabilities, but the American response represented a unified front, determined to innovate and adapt. This philosophy became ingrained in military culture, with every new development echoing the lessons learned from the silent menace of the U-boat. However, the engineers also grappled with a deep-seated unease about the moral implications of their efforts. They understood that each technological breakthrough had the potential to escalate the conflict, leading to an arms race that could have dire consequences. The specter of mutual destruction loomed, a silent partner in their work. This awareness instilled a sense of responsibility among the engineers, compelling them to consider not only how to prevail in war, but how to ensure that peace could follow. The U-boat was not just a tool of war, it had transformed into a symbol of what humanity risked losing in its relentless pursuit of victory. As the tide of the war shifted, the U-boat and the engineers' endeavors became intertwined narratives. The advancements in sonar technology led to more effective patrols, resulting in a notable decline in U-boat attacks along the Atlantic shipping lanes. Yet as the engineers celebrated these victories, they were also acutely aware of the cost that had been paid. Lives lost, families torn apart, and the ever-present specter of war that loomed over the horizon. The engineers' success felt bittersweet, underscoring the complexities of technological progress intertwined with human tragedy. By 1945, however, the outcome of the conflict stood on the precipice of change. The efforts of the engineers bore fruit, their innovations contributing to the eventual capitulation of German forces. Yet, as the dust settled, the engineers found themselves reflecting on the cycle of advancement and destruction. The U-boat, now a relic of war, had served its purpose in revealing both the fragility of human life and the resilience of human ingenuity. It symbolized a cautionary tale, illustrating the potential for progress to lead to either salvation or further conflict. In the aftermath, as the engineers returned to their labs, they bore a collective weight. They had witnessed the transformation of warfare through innovation, but also recognized the ethical considerations that could no longer be ignored. The lessons learned from the U-boat's acoustic systems transcended technical knowledge. They illuminated the path forward, urging a new age of responsibility in the application of technology to warfare. The engineers understood that their work would not simply be about defeating foes, but about fostering a legacy that valued peace as much as progress. Ultimately, the legacy of that U-boat lingered in the minds of those who had analyzed it. It became a quiet reminder of the complexities inherent in the human endeavor and the duality of creation. As the United States emerged as a superpower, its engineers carried forth a commitment to shaping technology in ways that prioritized humanity over enmity. The silence they felt upon witnessing the U-boat's capabilities reverberated throughout their work in the years that followed, marking an era not just of victory, but of reflection and responsibility born from the depths of the ocean's shadows. As the dust of war settled and the remnants of conflict were analyzed, the surrender of the German U-boat stood as a pivotal moment, not just in military engineering, but in the broader narrative of human ingenuity and its darker applications. The eerie silence that enveloped the U.S. engineers in the wake of their discoveries was not merely a reaction to advanced technology. It was a profound acknowledgement of the ethical implications tied to such innovations. These acoustic systems, designed for lethal efficiency, served as a stark reminder of the dual-edged nature of progress. In understanding the mechanisms of destruction, the engineers were also confronted with the moral weight of their own capabilities, prompting a reflection on responsibility in the stewardship of technology. As history unfolds, it becomes imperative to consider how such knowledge can be wielded, not just for defense, but for a future that prioritizes peace and cooperation. This moment serves as a testament to the enduring responsibility we bear as custodians of invention, reminding us that the lessons of the past must shape our approach to the complexities of the present and the uncertainties of the future.